Hey guys, welcome back to my Animal Adventures YouTube channel, and in this episode I want to talk about a ball python morph that I consider a hidden gem among ball python breeders. And if you're looking to invest in a new project, I would highly recommend investing in the Desert Ghost. Okay, to kick things off with the Desert Ghost, I want to show you the potential of what the Desert Ghost can do. It's actually considered an enhancer gene. So if you look at the plain Desert Ghost, it's not really that impressive, and I actually don't have a plain Desert Ghost in here, and it really looks like a normal with some of the black stripped away. But you start adding it with other combos and it's amazing what it can do. Some morphs, you know, just as a standalone morph, they're really impressive by themselves. But I think the Desert Ghost is really what they consider the king of the combos. It's the king of the combinations where you mix different genes together. You add Desert Ghost on top of that, and you get some incredibly stunning snakes. So what I'm going to do first is I want to show you just a pastel, and I want to show you a young one and then an older one, and then I want to show you what the Desert Ghost can do to just the pastel. Okay, so first I actually want to start out with something that's close to a normal. This is actually exactly like a normal, except it happens to be a scaleless head. I actually sold all my normals. So this is what the normal wild type ball python looks like. And if you compare that with a hatchling pastel, here's the pastel. And the pastel, it really intensifies the yellow. And if you can tell, also the wild type really has what we call alien heads on the sides, and it has more of a repeating pattern, where the pastel really breaks up the alien heads in the pattern, and sometimes you'll see little highlights in the black. And the only problem with the pastel is as the pastel ages, it tends to fade out. The hatchlings are really bright, but the older it gets, the more faded out it gets. So let me show you an adult pastel and how faded they can actually get. Alright, so check this out. This is a normal female ball python, and this is an adult. And my pastel, she's going crazy. She's running away. And this is what the pastel looks like. And you can see the pastel still has some highlights in the black, but it's definitely faded out compared to the hatchling. Now let me show you what happens when we add the Desert Ghost to the pastel. And let me tell you, this is going to blow you away. Alright, so take a look at this beauty. This is a male pastel Desert Ghost. No other genes in the mix, and it is really an impressive combo. And I've seen some of these in pictures, and let me tell you, they are more impressive in person. I mean, unless you actually hold one and see it, you know, you look at a picture and you think, yeah, that's photoshopped, or you look at the videos and you think, yeah, that's not a real interpretation of what the actual snake looks like, and then you see it in person and you're just kind of blown away. It's like, I've never knew that a ball python could be that impressive. It's just so amazing, I can't even believe it. And as soon as I saw these, I was definitely getting into the project. I actually paid some pretty good money for 2 of these Desert Ghost combos, and this male is the pastel Desert Ghost, and I actually have a spider pastel Desert Ghost female, and let me show you that one. First, let me show you what a bumblebee looks like and what the Desert Ghost can actually do to the bumblebee. Okay, so before I show you what a bumblebee is, I should probably explain the single genes in that bumblebee. So a bumblebee is a spider and a pastel, and this is as close as I have to a straight spider. It has a slight enhancer gene in it called jungle woma, but you can't really tell much. This almost looks exactly like a typical spider, and the bumblebee is the spider combined with the pastel, and this is an adult pastel. And let me show you what happens when you combine these 2 genes together. So this is what a bumblebee looks like. This has the pastel gene and the spider gene. And when these first came out, people just couldn't believe how amazing they were. And they were selling for tens of thousands of dollars. And people are snatching them up as fast as people could produce them. And actually, when the Desert Ghost came out and you mix it with this, it is even more impressive. You won't even believe what that looks like. And let me show you that snake. Alright, so look at this snake. This is my pastel spider Desert Ghost, and look what the Desert Ghost does to the bumblebee. It's just unbelievable. I can't even believe it. And if you would see this in person, it's just it'll totally blow you away. And the interesting thing about this girl is she has kind of a little black stripe right down the top center of the body. And you can see the spider influence, the white along the sides. And the pastel is, it almost doesn't even look real because it's so bright yellow. It's pretty amazing. It's just a really incredible snake. So now that I've showed you one of the most impressive ball python combos on the planet, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, well, why doesn't everybody start producing Desert Ghosts? And it's because right on the heels of the Desert Ghost, just a few years after it came out, there was another morph, another ball python morph that came out, and it was called the Desert. And let me tell you, there's some serious problems with the Desert and the fertility of the females. And when the Desert first came out, it was similar to the Desert Ghost, and people started breeding them. And I think one of the reasons I called it the Desert, because the results were almost exactly the same as the Desert Ghost, but the only difference is the Desert is a codominant gene, and the Desert Ghost is a recessive gene. So for example, if you took the problematic Desert and you bred it, half your babies would come out as deserts. Just think if you had ball pythons looking like that, and it came out 50% of everything you bred it to in the first shot, versus if you had a recessive, you breed it to your snakes and everything is het for Desert Ghost, and you have to breed the babies back together to actually get the visuals. And it takes a lot longer with the recessive. And really, I think the recessive, you have an advantage over the recessive because it really holds its value over the long term, and it's a lot more difficult to produce, and you just can't run it through your collection and make a whole bunch of, you know, Desert Ghosts versus the Desert. So I remember when the Desert just first came out in early, I think it was 2001, and people thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I actually saw some videos, you know, they get the Desert male, and they would breed it through their whole racks, and I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I'm going to breed it through all my snakes. And they were getting snakes that looked like this. But the only problem is the females. When the females lay eggs, all the eggs are slugs, which means they're infertile eggs. And a lot of times when the female lays eggs, the females would die. So here's another thing that really adds to the confusion between the Desert and the Desert Ghost. There's actually another single gene that's called the Ghost, and it's a recessive mutation. So now you can have the problematic Desert mixed with the recessive Ghost gene, which is called a Desert Ghost, versus the Desert Ghost, which is actually just one recessive gene. And I've seen a lot of times at people's tables, people actually, every now and then, it's not very often, but you'll see, you know, Desert Ghosts on the table. And a lot of people are walking up to vendors' tables at the reptile shows, and they're like, oh, there's a Desert Ghost, you got to stay away from them because they're problematic, and they don't realize that that's actually a Desert Ghost single gene versus a Desert and a Ghost combined in the same snake. So I actually went to morphmarket.com the other day and looked through their tens of thousands of snakes to see if there were any Desert combos available, and actually there was 5 or 6 snakes where you can actually go out and buy. Today you can actually buy the problematic Desert gene. And I think some people are really trying to keep some of these morphs alive. You know, they discover them and they fall out of popularity. And I think we're at a risk of really losing some of these genes that are really awesome. As a matter of fact, I saw someone's videos where it was a YouTube video and they were working with the Desert gene. And I just could not believe what their snakes looked like. And they had snakes that nobody else had. They were so impressive, I couldn't believe it. And nobody would actually get into that project because they think it's problematic. And remember, if you breed a male to all your non-Desert females, all the babies will be perfectly fine. All your, 50% of them will be Deserts and they'll all be fine. The only thing you don't want to do is raise up the females and breed the females. So typically what people do is they'll sell the females as pet quality only, but they'll still sell the males as breeders. The only problem is the prices for some of the really high-end combos with the Desert Gene are really low. So actually you can get some pretty impressive snakes for really cheap. I've seen some out there that will just blow you away, similar to this. I would say they're really on par with the Desert Ghost combos, but they're with a problematic desert, and you could pick them up for pennies on the dollar because nobody really wants to get into the Desert project. So that wraps up my discussion of the Desert Ghost gene. I think it's one of the hidden gems, one of the untapped genes in the ball python market that has a lot of potential. Not a lot of people are working with the Desert Ghost, and I think really the key to promoting the Desert Ghost is educating the general public about the differences between the Desert, which has problems, and the Desert Ghost, which has no problems at all. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.